Hello, everyone. Hope you're having an amazing Monday and welcome to the real. One second, one second. Could we stop? Because I'm hearing my audio again. Yeah, it's echoing. Yeah.
Is my voice. For me, it's fine.
Okay, wait. Hold up. Yeah, it's still echoing. Okay, I think we'll just continue again. Yeah.
Hmm.
So, hello, everyone. Hope you're having an amazing Monday and welcome to the Reality Bang. I'm Ajay Yohan, your host for the session, and thank you for tuning in. That's it. If you guys want to contribute to our topics, have any questions, or just want to tell us what an amazing job we're doing, you can reach out to us at 6364252164. Now let's jump right into it. Today we have a little bit of a history topic which deals way back to the Industrial Revolution. And of course, we have Johan here on the show. It's indeed a pleasure to have you on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Yeah, it's nice to be back.
So, for this edition of the Reality Buying, Joan and I will be having a discussion regarding the Industrial Revolution and give you guys a better viewpoint of this topic. So, my very first question to Johan is going to be now, what were the key factors that led to the start of the Revolution back in the 18th century in Great Britain?
So, so here's the thing. There are multiple factors that actually led to to the industrial revolution. I don't think there was one factor that you can pinpoint and say. And I think the main thing is that one thing people need to understand is this was the time where Britain was one of the most, or if not the most powerful country in the world at the time. They were
Hmm.
extremely wealthy, and they had they had colonized so many other countries. So because of that, they had so many uh, you know they had so many trading there. They had a lot of like global trade. They had so much power when it comes to global trade. For example, they had like other places where they were manufacturing machines and equipments, and then they had America where they were manufacturing cotton for them. And like this, they had other countries where they had good resources, and they were bringing that to them. And the power for them was British Navy also was very powerful. So their trade routes were extremely protected. So even so, every good that they were going to get, it's secure transportation, so that is for sure. So in terms of transportation, in terms of supplies and trades from other countries, that is one big power that they had, which is one of the you know which is one of the big advantages that they also used. And they also, the thing is like, the government also was very supportive for them during that time. The government, knew the power of wealth. So they knew, they were also like encouraging, and they created policies of patents, which would protect the inventors, like inventions and everything. So because of that, they were, we were also encouraging a lot of these people to start up and invent, come with innovative ideas. And they got the freedom. They created such sort of an atmosphere for them that even they were getting the willingness to take risks. They were having the interest to be creative and thinking outside the box, and coming up with stuff. And also they also had like a lot of like roads and canals built, which were extremely like helpful during like transportation. So
Yeah.
because of that, it played a huge role in, for them when it comes to transportation as well. And also they had extreme like supply of natural energy, which is coal and iron. Coal was mainly at the time used for as like a fuel, for like engine, for mainly for steam engine, which was used for transportations, for trains, for engines. And they used that, and it was like a main source of transportation. Iron became the main source of manufacturing and infrastructure. And they had an abundance of this, so it wasn't just supplies from other countries that they had. They also had their own abundance of good natural materials, which they could use for manufacturing itself overall. And they also uh, this was the time where agriculture had its have played a huge the revolution, because there were a lot of techniques of uh, seed drill, crop rotation. These are techniques we know which multiplied food production. And also this was the time where farms were getting privatized. So due to
Yeah.
these privatizations, these farmers were losing their jobs. So because of that, they were moving to all these urban cities where they were looking for new jobs, where they were searching for they were moved to the urban cities where they wanted new jobs. So this was also the time where they hit the right time, where they knew that this is the time where they can start industries, and there are people who are looking for jobs, so they can get people to work as well. So that was so they also picked at the right time to with and investing in new industries and everything. So that was I think the agriculture, the downfall of people losing their jobs played a huge role in them getting opportunities to to bring these people and give them a job. So these were like like the main factors that led to the beginning of the industrial revolution.
So, of course, you did speak about various, like the locomotive transportation and the agricultural reforms. So, now what were some of the major technologies or innovations, or if you'd like to say technological innovations, like during this industrial revolution?
The I think the two most popular the inventions during this industrial revolution that a lot of people know is one is steam engine and another one is called spinning jenny. I think these were the two things that we also read in our history books, and a lot of people know about it. Steam engine was engine it was it steam engine is something that was already there, but it was a guy called James Watt. He's the one who came in, and he's the one who his version of steam engine was so much more useful for them that they ended up using steam engine, and they used a lot of coal for to
Yeah.
fuel basically the steam engine. And steam engine was heavily useful for them when it comes to like mass transportation, and for trains, and for ships and everything. Steam engine was what they used. And the spinning jenny is one person using one person will be there who will be spinning the multiple threads together to come up with a together simultaneously together to for a cloth. So that was making clothes was a big was like a hand woven kind of a thing. And it was a massive process, and I think spinning jenny made it what took a lot of people to do. Spinning jenny, one person you alone could do. And water frame is another thing where they used water power basically to for spinning machines, which was allowing of mass production of yarns basically. So they were using a lot of the so that was this one generation where they were using a lot of the natural resources that they have. And then there's this another era. So the natural resources also include something called power loom. Loom was a machine that was used to weave threads and yarns for textiles
Yeah.
basically. And they had something called the power loom, which was like a mechanized mechanical version of the loom basically, which helped them which helped them in the production much faster. And also there was something called the puddling furnace, which helped them in making of iron, like welding, wrought and welded iron. It helped them in making that. So so that's the thing, like these people, there was one era where they were using coals, and they were using iron, where they were using very natural supplies, that energy and supplies that they had, they were using. And then came one now, this next, they also had something called cotton gin, which was basically used to separate cotton fabric from seeds. So this was
Okay.
something that used to be, done, by people, and that was taking a lot of time. This made the work easier for them. And they had something called coke fueled furnace. Coke is like another derivative for coal. So coke, that was cheaper than coal actually. So they ended up using that. So that was a lot cheaper as well. So they used a lot of like natural resources in the earlier the first stage of the industrial revolution. And they used that to create machines, and for the industry purpose. Then came this another generation where these are things that we also know, electric motors and electric lights. These are things that are used even now. So there was this next generation where there was a lot of electricity used. So the use of coal that was used to fuel, the use of coal and iron, that drastically changed with a lot of electricity, because not just they were using generators and motors, and this they were also using this was an era where telegraph and telephone came. So communication became a lot easier from them, for this. But this and all, the use of electricity and these things came like a century later, much
Yeah.
later. So industrial revolution is something that happened over a long period of time. So they used this, and there was another called the Bessemer process. It was a method of producing steel by blowing hot air through molten iron, which was used to make steel. This made the use of steel very easily. So this was also the era where steel came in instead of iron. Steel was a lot cheaper than iron, so they ended up using iron instead of steel for manufacturing. And it was a lot easier also to make steel for them. So because of the Bessemer process, so they ended up using a lot of steel as well. And also, like, they were using these chemical dyes. Like chemistry, became revolutionized during that time. So a lot of chemical dyes
Yeah.
started coming, which became which changed everything in textile for them. And also, like, this was the time where fertilizers also had come. They had come, which really helped in agriculture for them as well. And engines, they started there was a time where they were using coal to fuel up engines. Now they had gasoline and diesel.
Yeah.
So this was an era where lot of electricity and oil was used basically for manufacturing. The difference.
So, a while earlier, you just touched upon the previous gen and the new gen. So,
Hmm.
my question would be now, what would the difference be between the first industrial revolution and the second industrial revolution? Like, what were the key differences between those two eras?
I already, I think, mentioned and pinpointed out some things or the other but the thing is, the first era of of industrial revolution, their reason was very, what they did was completely different from what the second era of industrial revolution. And these two were very different. Like, for example, the first one was a lot of urbanization. It was a lot of they had enough wealth and power, so they knew to use that, and they knew this would be very helpful. So they used that power to invest on new industries and start something new. That was their main motive at that time. So because of that, they had, but they were having all lot of them were having natural resources basically. So they were using coals, they were using irons, and these were the main things that they're using. I mentioned, right, spinning jenny,
Yeah.
and I also mentioned steam engines. These were the main things that they use for manufacturing and machine. And the thing is, like, this first industrial revolution was mainly in Europe, in UK, and then in America, and these countries. It didn't spread out, that wide. It was like within a very short reach. And also, like, all the places that they were doing, they were all like small sized enterprises, small and medium sized enterprises. They weren't massive enterprises. They were like very small ones also. So the initial stages, their main motive itself was very different. There was a lot of like bringing in job for the laborers, and that basically revolutionizing the capitalism and the economy. That was the main intention. With the second industrial revolution, it was completely different. Theirs was basically because of electricity, because of oil, and because of how science basically uh, changed and rapidly grew. They use that, and they use that to improve the industry, which is why they came up with electric motors, they came up with electric generators, they came up with telephones, they came up with fertilizers and dyes. I mentioned all these things. They used all this to increase mass production, rapid growth of production. Because of that, they were and also they were using steel was cheaper than iron, so that was helping them in manufacturing as well. So this was a generation where this was an era where people found out much cheaper ways, easier ways, also to do mass production. And because they found out these kind of ways to do mass production in a much easier way, this was just helped them reach industrialization. It took, it went to like global,
Yeah,
phenomena. Like it was no more like within a few bunch of places, because this was easier for them. They found better methods of, how to manufacture it. Is it just blew up for them. And that was like the main difference. Like the first era was more, it was a lot of like manual labor. No matter how much they invented machines and everything, it had to do with a lot of people putting in, a lot of effort. I mean, if there is coal used for steam engine, there is a lot of manual labor in that as well. With electric
exactly.
motor, and these where they in engines where they're using, gasoline and diesel, they don't have that. So it
Yeah,
was a lot of like, it was like the manual labor reduced a lot more. And they realized these kind of simple ways, which made it better. So it's like, the two error differences is because technology, it is very simple, because technology improved, science improved, the world evolved. Because of that, they found, easier, ways to adapt with, with whatever technology had come, and they came up with better equipments and machines and everything. And they found out ways to, make mass production as well. So
yeah.
these are two errors that happen in a long, within a very long period of time. Like, there's like there's like a century of, difference between the two errors.
So since the beginning of the show, you have been telling me a lot of positive things. Like, no pun intended, it actually revolutionized the entire era. So tell me now, what are the impacts, or what were the impacts of the industrial revolution ever since its beginning on society?
See, I mean, yeah, it was a lot of positive impact. But if you're talking, if you're wondering about negative impact, it did like take a toll on the environment. Actually, if you actually feel think of it,
Yeah,
it did. There was a lot of degradation of environment. After the machines and industry started coming in, where they had to start building factories. And and there was an era where they were building small, medium-sized factories. And then when the second industrial revolution, where everything improved so much, they started producing large and massive, corporations, and plantations
yeah,
for, for this. So that also led to, a lot of people don't know, this also led to a lot of people losing their lands. Led to a lot of people losing houses. And and it was no more also safe for these people to live around, live around these places. So that was one
yeah,
sort of an impact that they had. But to think of it, like, because of technology improved, like before, the industrial revolution began, most of them were living, in rural areas. They were living in farms, and they were working in farms. That was their main profession. Because of, some the techniques which improved, farming. And because of the privatization of farms, they lost their jobs. So when they went in, the impact is, a lot of people ended up getting jobs. They started, investing in new industries also at the right time. So this was like an era of, what you would call the working man era. With the whole thing of, a 9 to 5 job. The whole thing of, having, okay, I won't say 9 to 5 job, but a whole structure of having a working life, and making an earning. That whole that's, it began through this. And it also, if you think of it, these were things that were basically made to make other people's life easier, right? I mean, in terms of textiles, in terms of transportation, these were, like like these are some things that were expensive. But because of industrial revolution, it became more affordable for people. So
yeah,
a lot of people did end up, benefiting from it. But the impact of it is, it also like, it also did have an impact on capitalism, I think. Overall, it did, because people moved from, one place to another. The whole labor system was formed, because of the industrial revolution. And there was a lot of like job opportunities is one big role that plays throughout this time. If you think of it, in the industrial revolution, I
yeah,
don't because there was no such thing as, going and getting a job, except, farming for them at that time. So really, they came up with a structure of, coming up with, you know coming up with the job opportunities.
Now, of course, way back when the Industrial Revolution began, Britain was ruling over India. So, now, how did the Industrial Revolution in Britain affect the Indian economy during the 18th century? That's when the first Industrial Revolution started, and during the 19th century.
Talking a lot of positive things about the industrial revolution. This is where the negative side of the industrial revolution comes comes in. It's very unfortunate what happened to India during that time. It's very sad actually.
Exactly.
Because India ended up becoming a country where they were importing textiles to other countries. These were hand woven,
Yeah.
textiles, and these were really good and very good quality. These are like cotton and silk textiles that they were importing, and they were importing potteries and decorations and furnitures. They were importing all these things. After industrial revolution began, textile, everything textile, there was no such thing as a hand woven thing, right? Like, I mean, like
Yeah.
with the machines you could actually come up with better textiles, and it was a lot easier work wise, and it was a lot more affordable as well. They could do a lot of mass production of these textiles, and they could see that. And there is obviously people would when there's like a much more affordable way of on getting something, they would go in that way and through that direction. So the toll in that was that India, they could not import these kind of things anymore. Instead they ended up becoming a country where they were supplying goods.
Yeah.
So because unfortunately because of Britain ended up colonizing India, they also ended up trading a lot of these things from India, and they had to go to the other place. They had to take it to the Britain. So they took a lot of things from India and where. So that's the unfortunate thing that happened, where this is a country where people were selling textiles. From that to people were selling sending cotton from here to UK for them to make their textiles. And it
Yeah.
also did take a toll on for uh, farmers itself, because a lot of them, they started, the UK British people also started coming up with the land revenue system. So because of that, a lot of farmers couldn't end up paying for a lot of these because of these policies. Farmers also couldn't end up paying the money that they were owing to the Britishers, and a lot of them got into debt. So that was another big toll it took. So India, from a country where they were sending good things to the other to other countries, it ended up becoming a country where supplies were taken from here and to the to British for their own good for. But the one thing they did was railways. I mean, they constructed
Yeah.
railways over here. But the thing is, like, that's the thing, right? Like, it wasn't for Indians. It was for them. They did
Exactly.
that for them, but they can't pick the railway tracks and go, so they can't do anything about it. So they,
Exactly.
so but in one way or the other, they did that to benefit them. But it's somewhat it's affected. In one way it's impacted India. Now railways, the biggest network of railways in India is right now, right? So there are a lot of that is the unfortunate thing with the industrial revolution. Like, a lot of things they did was unfortunately it was to benefit them. A lot of,
Yeah.
if in India itself, a lot of, you see a lot of the buildings that they have built, a lot of the churches that they have built. It's unfortunate that they built it all for them, right? And
Yeah.
and when they left, they've kept all these places, but it's very unfortunate that this was done for them. So that's the sad thing with India. India ended up was a country where they were where they had a lot of things to give to other countries. They were giving such good qualities of textiles, and now British people had to came in, and they took their things and went away basically.
Yeah, that was definitely an unfortunate case. But but throughout the entire session, like, this was an entire very informative session, because I'm not a history student. Like, if you ask me, like, industrial revolution is not really my thing. I just know a little bit here and there, but not the entire in-depth session which you just gave today. So with that being said, that officially brings us to the end of today's show, and a huge thank you to Johan for joining today's show and
Thank you,
indeed
thank
sharing
you
that.
for having me.
knowledge. Yeah. So with that said, like guys, we are airing on Mondays at 4:30 p.m. If you guys want to contribute our topics, have any questions, or just want to tell us what an amazing job we're doing, you can reach out to us at 6364252164. And a huge thank you to our listeners for tuning in to this edition of the Reality Bang, your weekly dose of youth power, brought to you by FEBA Online. This is RJ Johan. Hope you have an amazing week, and I'll see you next